I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Jiri tea. A Jiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story, to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways, no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you may be listening in the world. Thank you for joining in and listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Dorsey Ross, who has an incredible story of overcoming obstacles in life that were put there, and bullying, and just having such a good attitude through it all and staying so positive. It's really, really incredible. I cannot wait for you to hear it. If you enjoy the podcast, follow on Spotify, follow on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It helps a ton. And as always, enjoy this conversation. All right, brother. So I always start these off with a very big and broad question and kind of let you control the narrative on where this story goes, and just say, tell me a story of your life.
Yeah. Well, the story of my life is that on January 16th, 1977, I was born with a birth defect called aplet syndrome, which is a birth defect of the hands and the face. And when I was born, my forehead was pushed out with my eyes and nose were pushed back into my head, and my fingers and toes were fused together. Me, I had no individual movement of them. And my parents, my dad was 45 at the time, and my mom was 41. So they were older in age, and they were not even expecting to have another child.
Wow.
So when my mom started to gain weight, she went to the doctor thinking that she was going to have, a tumor or some type of cancer that was growing inside of her, and come to find out that she was pregnant.
Wow.
And back at that time, they didn't have the testing like they do today for the pregnancy and for, birth defects and all that. So they didn't even know that they were going to have a son with a birth defect. So when I was born, the doctors, rushed me out of the room without even my mom or my dad being able to see or to hold me. And later on, after the doctors examined me, they wheeled me back into the room, and I lifted up my hand, and my hand, as I said earlier, my fingers were fused together. And she said, well, if that's the worst thing that can happen, then we'll deal with it, not knowing, what the doctors want to tell them, which was the fact that I had no sore spot and no room for my brain to grow. And because of that, the doctors explained to my parents that I would eventually become brain dead, and that the best option for them would be to put me into a institution and to let me be.
Hmm.
Thankfully, because my parents were people of faith and they believed in God, they said, no, we're not going to give up on the child that God has given us. And they decided that they were going to take me home and take me to another hospital in the area in New York. And when the doctors there examined me, they said, well, if he has this operation, he'll survive, but he'll have to overcome a lot of issues and a lot of difficulties, and he'll have to overcome a lot of operations as well. So at 6 weeks of age, I had my first operation to open the skull and to allow my brain to grow and allow my brain to function as normally as possible. And from about 6 weeks to 5 years old, I had about 10 operations, all lasting up to about 10 hours at a time. And at 5 years old, I was able to enter the Henry Viscardi School for people with disabilities. And growing up, I didn't do that great in school. I had a learning disability. I wasn't that great in math, especially the higher up, math like algebra and that type of stuff. I didn't, do well in that type of math. And so I was struggling different types of testing and, homework and whatnot. So as I started to get older, I started to, think about what I wanted to do after I graduated high school. And even before then, growing up, because of the way that I looked and because of my disability, I would get teased, make fun of, bullied, called names like monster and freak. And that would, affect me tremendously. And, even at times, I thought about, ending my life and just, giving up. But, it was by the grace of God that He kept telling me, no, I have a greater plan for you. And that, don't give up on the life that I'm about to give to you. And, I started to go to the youth group and I felt loved and accepted in the youth group more than I felt, thankfully I felt more loved and accepted there than I did, you know, on the outside world because, you go into the circle, you think that that's what is going to happen.
Sure.
And I even had one, instance of where I was in the hospital with my mom for an operation, and the youth pastor and the pastor came to visit me, and my mom asked him, why hadn't he invited me to the youth group? And he said, well, I thought he had some type of, you know, mental disability or, something like that. And that's why he hadn't invited me. But regardless of what, I heard from my mom, and I still wanted to go as often as I could. But I was playing, floor hockey at my school, so I couldn't always go to the youth group. And, I was really involved with sports growing up. I was, played baseball, I did bowling, I did, football in the street. And I always wanted to see what more that I could do. Because my life saying is can't is not in my vocabulary. And I always wanted to see what more God had for me in my life. And I wanted to see, you know, after I graduated high school, if I could make it in college. And at this one meeting that my mom and I had to go to for this was the fact that we discussed whether I could make it in college. And this one high school history teacher that I had said to me, "No, I don't think that Dorsey was or has the capability of making it in college." And then, they asked my mom, and she said, "Well, if Dorsey thinks that he can make it, he will." And my mom and my dad, even my dad now, who's still with me, he's living with me, they have always been, great supporter of me and great influences in my life. They always allowed me to figure out for myself what I could and could not do. And couldn't wasn't very much. So in August of 1996, I entered Queensborough Community College to study liberal arts. And the first couple of weeks there were very difficult for me. And, not knowing anybody, having to meet all new people, um, taking new tests and learning new stuff that, I never learned before. And I would come home, I would get, upset and nervous and anxious at night. And I even had this meeting, well, not this meeting, but this conversation with my mom about possibly even quitting and looking for something else to do. And my mom said, "Look, take it a few more weeks. If after a few more weeks you still feel this way, we'll discuss it and we'll see what we can do." And thankfully, by the grace of God, I was able to find out that they had a Chi Alpha Christian Club on that campus. And I went to that meeting. And from the first time that I went to that meeting till 4 years later when I graduated, I was no longer anxious. I was no longer, sick at night. And but even after 4 years of community college, which usually takes, regular people, I guess you can say, 2 years,
Mm.
I still wanted to go on to Bible college because I thought that I was called to become a youth pastor. I wanted to, speak to the youth and minister to the youth. And so I entered what is now the University of Valley Forge. And even at that time, I still had struggles. I still had, difficulties. And one of the biggest difficulties that I had to face was the fact that in 2002, I got a call that my mom had passed
Mm.
away from a stroke. I knew that she had suffered a stroke in 2000 in August of that same year, and then in December of that year, I found out that she had passed away. And even at that time, I still wanted to persevere. I still wanted to move forward and to be able to finish what God had started in my life and what I believe that His plan was for my life, which was to finish Bible college. And 3 years later, on May 5th, 2005, 28 years after I was told my parents were told I would be brain dead, 9 years after being told that he wouldn't even be able to make it in college, I was able to cross the stage to receive my bachelor's arts degree in youth ministry. And growing up, I always, you know, people may have thought that, hey, he's ugly, or even now sometimes on dating sites, I get, hey, you're ugly, or you look like a monster. But I have always thought of myself you know, as a masterpiece and as, beautiful or handsome, regardless of what anybody else, think of me. because that's the way, God created me. That's the way that God wanted me to look like for this time in my life. And I started to, in 2007, I started to travel around and speak and, minister and just share my story. And just recently, I, started to send out my information to different podcasters that wanted to host me. And I'm been getting a lot of invites saying, "Hey, come on my show. You got a great story to tell."
Yeah. Yeah, you do. That is unbelievable. Um, there's so many parts that I wanted to jump in and talk about, but the last one that you were just talking about is I hadn't even thought about like dating apps and stuff. I mean, I can't believe that people have taken that step to connect with you and then just to tell you that horrible
Right.
why just I'm thinking with the options of just like saying no, that they're taking the time to come in and say, "You're ugly. You're a monster." That's
Yeah.
just so vicious to me
Right.
because you are. You're handsome. You're a beautiful human being. And I just think that's so, I don't know, that just didn't sit well with me at
Yeah.
all.
And in my experience, with the dating apps, most of the people, unfortunately, you know, with the females. I mean, I'm not saying the females are fake, but the people behind the profiles are fake.
Sure, yeah.
It's usually they'll, come out and say, "Hey, send me money," or
Mm, yeah.
even recently, I mean, it's dumb, but on the Facebook dating app, that they have on Facebook,
Hmm.
they'll tell me like this story that it's a sad story, but that their parents died in a car accident or whatever.
Mm.
But it's like the same. It's like different people telling you the same story or a similar story.
Right,
So,
right, right.
like, wait, what's going on here? Type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's bots all over infiltrating all
Yeah,
those sites. Man. Um so I wanted to ask too. You said you were born with fused fingers and toes.
right.
What was the process of unfusing
Yeah,
for
well,
that?
that was part of the. I had to undergo 68 operations throughout my lifetime, and that was part of the operations that I had to undergo, which was to go into the operating room and the doctors had to separate, my fingers to be able to make fingers and to be able, take skin and skin graft from, certain parts of my body to be able to, you know, reconnect the skin and different things of that nature. And even my face, they had to open up my skull. They would open up my skull. They like make an opening from my left ear to my right ear, or vice versa, to be able to move my forehead forward or my face forward to be able to reconstruct my face to make it look more you know quote unquote normal.
Wow.
And I was told early on that the doctors would look at my dad and see what he looked like,
Mm.
and then try to make me look more like him type thing.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing what surgeons can do, first off. To be able to
Right.
even accomplish these types of surgeries is unbelievable. But um, how the healing process through all these had to be just grueling at some
Oh
points.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it definitely
how
was.
young? I mean, are you still in that surgery pattern, or what age were you when the surgery slowed down?
Yeah, well, I was in my mid-teens.
Okay.
The surgery slowed down. I did have one in when I was in college, only because I was I slipped and fell and broke my arm,
Oh, okay.
and didn't realize that my arm was broken for 3 days until I had a until my arm was swollen, and I woke up. I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look normal."
Right.
And I went to the
Oh man.
hospital, and they said, "Yeah, your arm's broken. You don't need to put pins in it and
Wow.
reconnect it type thing."
Damn. Even yeah, to have it so broken that you needed pins. Amazing. So yeah, what was the healing process on some surgeries like this? Did you have big times where you had to lay low and take it easy, or what?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was home, a lot of the time, especially in my elementary years, I would have to stay home for, probably weeks and months
Mm,
at a time, and have to have, somebody from the school come and basically homeschool me, you know, so that I can keep up with, what was going on in the classroom.
sure. So I imagine then, with all of that on top of the bullying you were already getting, I'm sure that that made it tougher in school because you weren't always there all the time. Or if you were there, then all of a sudden you go away for a couple of weeks, then you had to come back in. And I
Right.
just know kids are pretty cruel, so
Yeah.
I'm
And the
sure that
school that
added
I
to it.
right, and the elementary school that I went to, it was a school for people with disabilities.
Oh,
Every
okay.
student in that school was someone that had a disability. So you wouldn't think that, in that school, in that environment, that that would happen, but yet it did.
Yeah.
And even in the outside world, and in the neighborhood, or a local grocery store and whatnot, I would have people, stare at me and point and look. Even now, sometimes, walking in the mall, or whatnot, I would wonder, what are people thinking about me, or you know what are they saying, to themselves about, what they see.
Yeah. So to that point, um, how do you keep your confidence? Because I see you as a very cheerful, very confident person. How do you keep that up when you've had that happening your whole life?
Yeah, it's just, it's definitely my faith. It's definitely my faith in God, and just knowing that, you know I got a great family. I got great friends that I can connect with. I can connect, with God whenever I want, and just say, God, I'm feeling down today. Help me to feel encouraged, or, reading my Bible and reading, and the encouragement Bible verses in my Bible that I know that I can go to, that will help me and uplift me, for that time and for that day that I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Um. So that makes me want to say just I think it's really beautiful that you've taken this into youth ministry because it is such, as you know, and anybody listening to this, that is such a it's a tough time for any human because we're learning, we're growing, kids are telling us these things, our parents are telling us these things. We're just learning life, and it's not always the nicest time of our lives. No
Right,
matter which way, what way we grew up or where we grew up, kids can be very mean. And like you said, in your school, that was a school for humans with disabilities. They were still bullying there, which I was thinking, man, it just goes to show as kids we can be very mean. Um, but I think it's really beautiful that you've had a heart for youth because now you can talk about your youth and how you grew up and tell them it can get better and just motivate them. So talk to me a little bit about that. I think that's pretty amazing.
yeah. I mean, I have done, some ministry opportunities to the youth, and I just encourage them, to know who they are in themselves, and know that, God has a plan and purpose for them, and not to worry about, what other people think about them, and just to be encouraged in themselves, basically.
Yeah, because I think even if it's not indirectly said, I think a self empowerment is lacking in a lot of kids. They just don't know what that is, or self love at that moment. It's not necessarily put on you of you need to love yourself and find that power in yourself. So what an important message to find that strength in you and grow into who you are. I think more kids need to hear that at younger ages so they can start developing themselves at that point.
Right, definitely.
Yeah. So I think that's really amazing that you are that you're doing that. And I wanted to ask too, on your dating life, have you dated much, or besides the apps and stuff?
Yeah, I haven't really, quote unquote dating. I mean, I've gone out with girls before, one on one, but as far as having a girlfriend, I never really, you know, after the age of 18, I never really had a, girlfriend.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend in high school, but like who doesn't?
Right, right. Yeah.
um, but
So,
growing up, I never really had a girlfriend, and that's one thing that I'm hoping to be able to find, and hoping to be able to, you know, come into my life at some point.
yeah. Yeah, I imagine because everybody wants that, So
Right.
I imagine how do you navigate through that then?
I just, I could play and, hope and, you know, believe that one day that I'll find somebody, a girl that's not going to look at me as someone on the outside, but someone on the inside.
Yeah.
And that, obviously, we'll have to be attractive to one another physically, but, I think a lot of us, need to look at others, from the inside as well.
Right. Yeah, I do understand the physical attraction, but it's my hope that people that that they can love for no matter what someone looks like, just for the person they are. 'Cause
Right.
I love having this chat with you. I think you're an amazing person. So I really hope that for you, that someone just is like, man, Dorsey is such a good dude, which it will happen. And I imagine in this time, I haven't dated in a long time, thankfully, but I can't even imagine what it's looked like even in coronavirus times. It's had to have just any progress anyone's made. It's kind of been
Right.
like, well, humans are what we want to stay away from right now. So it had to be even stranger nowadays.
Yeah.
And for your speaking in your ministry, what has that looked like too in this time?
That's come to, well, now it's starting to pick up a little bit more, but, in 2020, from like March until, I mean, I had, I've had some in 2020, but a lot of it was just came to a dead stop,
Yeah.
and like completely, almost completely closed down basically. And I went to a couple where, they were in person, and I talked to a couple of people that, said, "Hey, I'll come and I'll come and do a Zoom meeting, or I'll come and do a
Yeah.
virtual service somehow." And I've done that before. And I've done that, but a lot of the people that I've spoken to, they were like, "No, we want you here in person. We
Yeah,
want
yeah.
you, to see you live." I'm like, "All right,
Yeah. So you have seen a little uptick in that
yeah,
moving forward. Good.
yeah,
That's awesome. And you're in Pennsylvania, right?
I am. I'm in Westchester, Pennsylvania,
Okay, cool. Um,
originally from Queens, New York, but
from Queens. All right. So when did you move down to Pennsylvania?
November of 2020.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah,
brand new to Pennsylvania.
yes.
What brought on the move?
Um, it's just I found out it's just cheaper way of living.
Yeah.
Rent is cheaper, and I mean, I had friends in New York, and I still do, but I know a lot more people here in Pennsylvania. I got a lot more connections
Good.
as far as ministry goes, and whatnot.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of people are figuring out in a time of nothing being open and being locked down that New York is a hard place to live in.
Yeah,
Especially, I mean, even just monetarily, where, like you said, a lot of your work got taken, and like mine did as well, and
right.
so many people around the world. But I know I've seen a lot of people, of my friends in New York, figuring other options out at this point. Um, so if somebody, I usually ask this at the end, but it's a good point to ask it now. So if somebody is looking to have you come and speak,
Yeah,
how do they do that?
yeah. They can look me up on my website. It's just www.dorseyministries.com.
Okay, great. Yeah,
And
is
I
that
also have my, just a little shout out. I have my autobiography on my website as well.
oh beautiful.
I wrote an updated version of my autobiography last year, and
That's amazing.
it's on my website. You can get it on there, and you can buy it from there. I'll autograph it for you, and I'll send it out, or you can buy it on Amazon as well.
Oh, fantastic. That's amazing. I would say support the regular website, get an autograph. That's better than Amazon. Get it personalized. But that's amazing. How long have you been working on writing that?
The original one came out in 2016,
Okay.
which it took me about 2.5 3 years, maybe a little bit more, to write it. And I wrote it, just because a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you got to write your book. You got to write a book. You got to write a book." So I finally, just sat down, started writing out, a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And the original one, I found out, from a good friend of mine. He was saying that, hey, you got a lot of, you got some grammar errors in here, you got spelling errors and whatnot. You need to, you know, take it to a better editor than you did, and have somebody, redo it for you, which I did. And then the guy read it again, and he was like, "Hey, this is great. I don't see any errors. Any, it's a good book. Like, good book."
Great. Yeah, I'm always interested in speaking to anybody who's written, because I have kind of a crazy story. So I'm working very very slowly on writing my book too. So I'm always trying to pick people's brains after they've written a book
Right.
and how long it took. And so I'm like 2.5 years. I could get in that wheelhouse. That works for me. Um, so I wanted to ask at the beginning. Um, the doctors said that you would be brain dead. Why did they think that you would be brain dead?
Well, because I had no skull opening.
Oh,
The
right.
soft
Okay.
spot, wasn't there. So if the brain continued to grow, it would eventually hit my skull.
Okay.
And I guess the brain, continually hitting the skull would eventually cause brain damage.
Okay.
And that's the first operation at 6 weeks. That's what I had the operation for, which was to make an opening in the skull
Gotcha.
to allow, the brain to grow more.
That seems so early for. I mean, I understand that it had to be that timing, but that seems so early. Or
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. Maybe it's easier because it's hasn't gotten. I don't know. I don't know much about the skull and how thick they are, but
right.
that seems that seems so young and amazing. Like I said, amazing that people can that people can do that. Um, so what are what were some of your biggest highlights throughout your life so far?
Yeah, well, obviously, the biggest one was, being able to graduate college.
Yeah, tell me about how that felt. What were you feeling in that moment? Your name gets called and you're walking across. What are you feeling?
Yeah, that was just an amazing, feeling to be able to do that. I probably had, out of the 50 or 60 people that graduated that day, I probably had the biggest applause that out
Yeah.
of everybody that was there.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just an amazing thing to do that and to say, hey, I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Even even people at that college, at the I don't know what department it was, but somebody said, and I even did. They said you could actually get an associate's degree, from the Bible college, because at least if you get the associate's degree, you have something that you can say that you have in case you don't make it to
Mm.
graduation to get the bachelor's degree. That even at that school, I was struggling, with tests and with some class, some classes and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. I can't even imagine the joy that you're feeling of just like, I did it. Yes. That's so good. That's so good. All right, I'm gonna change the speed a little bit. I always ask this to everybody, and it is, if I came to you, COVID restrictions aside, obviously, and I said, Dorsey, here's a plane ticket to anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Oof. I would probably say Hawaii.
Okay. Have you been yet?
No, I had not been to Hawaii yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing place. Where's your favorite place you've been to so far?
My favorite place I've been to so far is probably Sacramento, California.
Okay. What did you like about Sacramento?
I just like the town. I mean, I wasn't there for long because I was there, um, like I was there for a couple of days, for a speaking engagement.
Okay.
So I was only there for like 4 days, so I didn't get to see everything.
Sure, yeah.
But for what I did see, I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is a cool town. I've been there a few
Yeah,
times. Um, yeah, I work in the music industry, or I had previously to to what we're all experiencing right now. So I've been through
right.
there a few times. Throughout everything, what have been the hardest challenges that you've had throughout
Yeah.
life?
Well, the harder challenges definitely would have to be the operations.
Yeah.
I've had my mouth wide cut twice
Oof.
because they had to, break the jaw and move the jaw forward, and I had to have that wire cut twice. I had some type of thing on my forehead or on my head that they had to put on to keep that my head from moving and everything. I had pings and everything in my arms and my fingers when they would do the you know separation of my fingers and everything.
Yeah. What are you? Do you still have any residual pain from all that? All
I
those
don't,
surgeries?
not really.
Okay.
I think now the residual pain will probably be maybe from arthritis or maybe from
Sure.
working out too much.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of workout routine do you have?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I just randomly, do push-ups once in a while.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to lose weight, and then
Yeah.
do
Yeah. Yeah.
five, and then I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah. I can understand that. I can totally understand that. Um, so have you been able to like get out and do walks and stuff?
I
Now
do.
that
Yeah,
now that you're, because I know New York City was a pretty heavy lockdown, so I'm sure
yeah,
once you got out of there, it was nice and a little more open in
right.
Pennsylvania. I'm sure.
And it's a little bit more. It's now more, even more open now,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
yeah. So, what are you looking forward to as we come back into some sort of normal?
Yeah. just being able to go back to the movies, they announced this morning that, Fast and Furious 9 is going to
Right.
be out June 25th, I believe.
Okay. I didn't know they were still making those.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I think
Uh,
I think they signed a contract for like a 10 seasons or 10 movies.
wow. Okay. Um, yeah. What on that? I love talking movies. What are some of your favorite movies?
Um, Definitely Fast and Furious. I like all action movies.
Okay.
Um, I like, probably anything with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I like I mean, everything that Tom Hanks seems to be doing lately have all been, like like where he gets not into trouble, but where he needs help,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like he's about to die. I'm like, I don't want to go on any trip with Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No kidding. I think one of my favorite ones with him was Catch Me If You Can. I loved that movie.
Okay,
Did you see that one?
I don't think I ever seen that one.
That's a fun one. It's kind of a thriller, cat and mouse with some international crime. It's fun. I think you'd enjoy
Okay,
it. Yeah, it's got Leonardo DiCaprio in it too. It's
okay,
yeah, it's older, but I think you'd enjoy it.
okay.
That's cool. Um, all right, I have a couple more questions for you, and then we will give you back your day. First one: what would you want the world to know about you, Dorsey?
I would want the world to know about me is that I'm someone that's an overcomer. I'm someone that's not going to give up easily. I'm someone that's going to persevere, with whatever situations that come before me. You know, you put something in front of me, I'm going to try and at least do it. I have my arms are shortened because of my rotation of my shoulders, and my arms don't fully go out, go up straight because of the elbows and whatnot, either because I broke my arm or whatnot. So, you know, you would think, well, Dorsey's not going to try the indoor rock climbing because of his, stubbed fingers. But yeah, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Dorsey's not going to be able to play basketball because of his arms being shortened. But I'll be on a team.
Yeah.
I may not be able to shoot, the way normal people, shoot or slam dunk, but I'll play.
Yeah.
I'll play.
Right.
A lot of people, they'll come up to me and they'll say, or they'll ask me, how did if I'm at an event or something, they'll ask me, how did you get here today? I said, well, I drove. They're like,
Yeah.
you drive? I'm like, yeah, I drive. I have my own car.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and I mean, if as you listen to your story, there's no doubt in my mind that you fully are that. You are persevering. You have so much perseverance. You have so much strength, man. It's unbelievable to hear. I love listening to your story. And that was something I wanted to ask you about with sports when you were a kid. You said you played quite a few sports.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was
I
your
played.
favorite that you played?
My favorite would definitely it was probably a toss up between bowling and baseball.
Okay.
And I was in a league for people with disabilities, and it was um, especially with the baseball, it was more um, not limited. It was more the rules and like the bat. We wouldn't use well. Sometimes we would, but some people would have to use the black to bats or
Sure.
the big bats. We wouldn't use um, regular hard baseball. We would use a tennis ball.
Okay.
Nobody would really get hurt.
Sure, yeah.
Um, it was like a modified version of Little League.
Okay. That's so
And
cool.
bowling, you know, people, again, people, I wouldn't use any holes in my bowling ball
Okay.
because my fingers are so stubby. I wouldn't be able to put my fingers in the holes.
Sure. Yeah.
And when I put my arm back, because my arm was limited, it wouldn't go back all the way. But when I would put it in the palm of my hand,
Hmm.
I'll be able to, with my speed and everything, I'll be able to, roll the ball down the lane faster that way than I would,
Yeah.
way, you know, anybody else would. And people would be surprised about, the curve that I have and everything when I would roll the ball.
Yeah.
After not going to, bowling for a year or more now, I don't know what that's going to look like, but
Right.
I guess we'll find out.
Hey, you'll just have to build it back up.
Yeah, there you go.
Just gotta get that skill back. That's amazing. I love bowling. It's so much fun. It was so much fun. Um, all right, brother. Well, the last question I have for you is if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
I will probably say love one another.
Yeah, that's such an
Love one
important
another
message.
and treat each other with respect.
Yeah, totally. I think that is something I say to a lot of people, and I want people to learn that more, and just love and acceptance and kindness always is much better than the opposite. And
Right.
I think we need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
I was kind of saddened by humanity of the last years, and so I think we need that message more than ever. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing that message and chatting with me and spending the morning with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one more time, uh, where can they find you?
You can find me at dorseyministries.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on Instagram at dorsey.ross, and also find me on Facebook as well. Just
Sweet.
that Dorsey Ross. I think I'm
Awesome.
the only one with that full name on there.
Awesome. The one and only Dorsey Ross. Well, cool. I will put that in the show notes too, so there'll be links to it. But man, I truly appreciate you. I've been looking forward to chatting with you, and this has been a really beautiful way to start my morning.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, man, and
Thank
I'll
you.
talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks
Yep.
for having me.
Yeah, no worries. See you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. Peace signs up.